finish the grade. Are you ready for change?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. So you know,
a year. We're going to bring change. This is the year we make it happen. The taxes are higher. And how is everything in its where's the money will be going when we take off? The money will be going back into your pockets as we cut your taxes. Here's my plan. What does this sound like to you? A working class tax cut. Tax free. No state income tax. First 150 grand. Do it. Paula, what do you think? Shall I tell them how we're going to do it? Alright. Here's how we're going to do it. Debt for our kids and our grandkids to pay. We know that there's only one way to cut the budget of California. That is taxes. And why cutting taxes is so important? There's changes that we're going to make when we're elected in California. A lot of changes. We're going to make housing more affordable, gas, and cut your utility bills in half. We're going to have starter homes for young families. We're going to fix our schools so every student reads by third grade. We're going to have skills training in every we can help with the insane cost of everything in California. We're going to find $25 billion to pay for it. Now, I don't know about you, with my colleague and our colleague, Gloria's colleague on the golden ticket running for state control of zero waste.
Yeah.
And here's how we're going to do it. Number one, on day one, we are going to stop the fiasco of high-speed rail. No more. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a guy down there, he's going, I've got a chair to stand on, he's going, we're going to cut it. That's exactly right. So that of the people who've been in charge of our state. So it's supposed to open. It's now 6 years late. $200 billion over budget. My opponent had to open high-speed rail, to finish high-speed rail on time and on budget 6 years ago. On budget, they spent half the budget, they haven't even laid any tracks. Exactly. He said, high-speed toilet. They call this the bullet train. $200 billion over budget, 30 years later, bullet train. That's a bullshit train. We're going to shut that whole thing down. Day one. No more money. No more money for high-speed rail. By the way, it's not just an insane waste of money and a total fiasco where they haven't even laid any track yet. This has been going on. China has we've laid 0 miles of high-speed rail. And you may say, okay, China, authoritarian government, they want Spain. Spain has 1,005 that we've laid 0. France has laid 1,700 miles in the same time that we've laid 0. Morocco, there was a team from the French high-speed rail system that came to California to help with the project. Did you know this story? So they sent a team to help here in California. And after a few years, the Morocco team said, you know, it's less dysfunctional than California. They went to Morocco, which opened its high-speed rail from nothing years ago. Even while Gavin Newsom and his cronies have laid 0. With our money, they spent $15 billion of our money doing nothing. So, and here's the final point. It's not just that this is an insane waste of money. They've actually broken their promise. They asked for money from us to pay for this thing. They said high-speed rail would operate with 0 public subsidy. It would pay for itself as it was going along. They've just published their business plan, which in billions of dollars of public subsidy. They've broken their promise. It's not just a waste of money and a total fiasco. It is actually illegal. And that's why that we will stop those payments to high-speed rail on one. And that gets us, here's the next. We've got, and many of you here, working people in California to pay healthcare costs. Healthcare costs that have gone through the roof. And they are taking your tax money when you can barely afford healthcare, and they're taking your taxes and using it to fund free healthcare for citizens of other countries that shouldn't even be here in America. And so that's another thing we're going to stop. No more for illegal immigrants. That is going to stop. That is only fair. That is only fair. And that's another 8 billion. All right, we're doing pretty well. 12 billion, we're halfway there to our target to give you that tax money back. Next, did you know that since Gavin Newsom, he's increased the total number of bureaucrats in Sacramento? This is not government workers, this is not law enforcement officers and police or fire or teachers or anything useful. This is pure bureaucrats. The bureaucrats in Sacramento that are bossing us around from morning and regulations and nonsense that every small business owner has to live under, and every family's cost going up because of all this bloated nanny state bureaucracy. He's increased the number of bureaucrats from 215,000 to 250,000. Are they helping make anything better? No. I don't think so. We are going to have a 10% headcount reduction in bureaucrats in Sacramento. That's another 3 billion right there.
They'll do real jobs.
And then we're gonna take a sledgehammer to this inefficient, bloated government bureaucracy. In the real, really have to make things more efficient. You have to find safety. When's the last time that ever happened in our government? Never, never. Well, it will when we're elected. We are efficiency savings across every government department in the state of California. It's your money. It's your money. You need to spend it wisely. So that's 18 billion, well over 25 billion, and we're just getting started with Operation. Another thing we're going to cut out, the vanity spending on things like Gavin Newsom's first partner project for his wife and portraits for former governors. Spending on non-profits, billions of dollars to the homeless industrial complex. That's going to stop. We're just adding up how much we can save there. Shut down the homeless industrial complex. So I'm just here to tell you, we are just at the beginning. We will get California back on track. We will make our government more efficient and spend your money wisely. And that means we can do our job of putting more money in your pocket. Yes, we will be able to deliver that pledge. Your first 150 grand tax-free. That's going to happen when you vote for change in November. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more that I can tell you, but this is a time for you to ask your questions, and so I'm just going to wrap it up by saying this. This is the time when, as a state, we really do say enough is enough. And we say we've had it with these insiders on our state into the ground, who've taken the most beautiful, magnificent state anywhere, not just in America, but in the world, and made it so hard to live here, so that people are actually leaving California because it's so expensive and so difficult to raise a family or run a business. And it's the insiders that have done that. The Sacramento machine that's done that. And my opponent, Javier Becerra, he is the living embodiment of more of the same. Do we want more of the same? Another 4 years of this? I'm telling you, I don't know how, after what they've done to our state, the highest poverty rate in the country, the highest unemployment rate in the country, the highest cost of living by far, homelessness, crime, the school's a disaster. I don't know how they've got the nerve to ask for another 4 minutes, let another 4 years of this. Right. So change is coming, everybody. Change is coming to California. And it's going to be a beautiful day because we've got everything going for us in this great state of ours. We've got everything. We've got the best weather, we've got magnificent natural beauty, we've got the best people, we've got great businesses and entrepreneurs and universities and innovation and that rebel spirit of California that built this state into a place that has led the world for so many years in so many different ways. And that's going to be what happens again when we are elected and bring change to our state, because we really do have everything we need to be truly amazing again in this state. We got everything we need except a good governor, and very soon we'll have that as well. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
And one more thing, because this is El Cajon, I was asked if I could say just a few words in Spanish. Votantes en California y ¿no? Queremos seguridad para nuestra comunidad, queremos gas para nuestros hijos y hijas también, queremos bajar los impuestos, ¿no? Y para tener como un futuro para nuestra familia. Partes de California, desde Oregon hasta la frontera de México. También nosotros podemos ser unidos para hacer el cambio que necesitamos en California, pero nosotros no vamos a hacer el cambio si nosotros no salimos a votar. ¿Sí vamos a salir a votar? Sí, tenemos que votar y unidos podemos hacer el cambio. Basically in English, the Latino community Let's get out, let's vote, no more 16 years. Back to Steve.
All right. All right, everybody. I've got a very important thing I want to say. We're having some fun. We plan the changes that we're going to make for California. We're going to have some questions in a minute, but right now, I just want who's come along here today to fight for our beautiful state of California. I want to say cheers, everybody. Change is coming. All right, change is coming. Let's drink to that.
Yeah, change.
We love it. Change is coming. All right. That's very nice. Thank you very much. All right. I'll stay up here a bit. Who's got a question? Yes, sir.
So I got a lot I'd like to say, but I know your time is really valuable. I want to say, as somebody who comes from Kentucky, where the minimum wage is less than $8 an hour, I grew up without running water. I've lived here since 2014. Has is to be born in this or to live here. I really enjoy it here. I've lived here for over 10 years. I built my family here, my business, my home. I think the two biggest issues for me as a voter is I don't think that single family homes should ever pay property taxes. And number two, I think, and I'm certain that you guys are already building this out, and I'm not going to ask you to disclose that so that you guys can keep it in your hat. But a lot of people here are concerned that their votes are going to be counted. Let everyone know you and your team are more than aware of that, and you guys are going to. Thank you very much.
That's what I was saying. I was like,
I want to talk about this point about single-family homes. It's incredibly important. And on Monday this week, I made a speech in San Francisco, and you can watch the speech. It's online, called "A Decade of Building," because we got to build homes, we got to build infrastructure, we got to build new nuclear power stations, desalination plants. We got to build. That's what we, and especially we got to build homes because that was the California dream. It used to be the place. It's hard to imagine this now. We had the most affordable housing in America. Here for the dream of owning their own home. And that is restored, because we're going to stop this ideological insanity. The only kind of housing that is apartment buildings shoved into suburban neighborhoods. That is going to end. We are going to stop that. And instead of constantly building up, we are going to build outwards. We are going to build single family homes again. We're going to build starter homes for young families. So we restore that California dream of home ownership. It's incredibly important. We can make that happen again. Now, property tax you asked about, that is very much a local issue in so many ways. And so we're focused on what we can do at the state level to reduce taxes. There's a very important thing, as well as the tax that we're going to cut. How about this? This will make so many people in California. Look at the way they are gapped with vehicle registration. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? How, like 500, 600, 700, 800, I don't know, 1,000 every time. You know, the other day I met someone who had to pay $360 vehicle for an electric golf cart. I mean, it's insane. We are going to end that gouging, and we are going to keep registration at the flat fee of $71 per vehicle per year.
that's just like Florida. That's what Florida is.
Taxes, I want to focus on things that I can control at the state level. Now, you asked about voting. Very important.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things wrong with our voting system in California. But here's the simple truth, that we can't fix any of it until we actually get elected. And so that's what we're going to focus on. And there's a very simple point. The only vote that you can be sure won't be counted is the vote that is not cast. We got to focus on every single vote we can get. That's how we win this. we're going to make it too big to rig. You know that saying, too big to rig. And you've got to tell everyone, don't sit this one out. Because here's the fact. We know, you mentioned voter ID. Voter ID is really popular across the board, not just Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and so voter ID is on the ballot this November. And that's going to help get a big turnout. But here's what every single one of you can do, and I really mean this. If you're concerned about what's going on with the ballots and the voting system, here's what you can do about it. You can help make it too big to rig, because there are millions of people in California, millions of Republicans, Democrats, Independents, who don't vote in midterm elections. They only vote in presidential elections. Now, if we get all those people to show up in November, then we really will win. Every single one of you, if you make a pledge to find one person that was planning not to vote, and get them to vote for change in November, we will double the vote, and it's how we're going to win and make change happen this year. Thank you very much. I'll repeat the question. Keep going.
Okay, anyways, acquired fuel tax back in 18. I work for Car Tomorrow, I know this. My two questions is SB1, which is automatic gas tax every year. So every homeowner here.
Very important point. So all these Democrats now, they know how hard it is to live in California. You hear them the whole time. They go, oh, we got to deal with our affordability crisis. Oh, it's so high. We got to do something about affordability. Well, who made everything so expensive? The people who've been in charge all these years. And so when they say we're going to do something about affordability, you ask them, every Democrat, and I ask Becerra, why did you just increase the gas tax? Just a few weeks ago, it went up again. Why did you just support California history? Now they're going to be taxing your health insurance more. They're going to be taxing software that you use every day. They've just brought in the biggest tax increase in California history. These people who go on and on about affordability, they don't care about that. They are insiders. They don't care about. We are here to fight for the people, for regular working people who are tired of being gouged by these insiders in Sacramento. That's who we're fighting for. Working people in California, small businesses in California. Most of my career has been in business. I ran small businesses, I ran restaurants, small local businesses, especially for so much. And you know one of the same things that Becerra said. Did you hear this? Having a good time in this campaign. I'm telling you, some of the genius moves that Becerra has made so far. He said the other week, don't eat at restaurants. You should only get Mexican food at illegal street vendors. Insult to every small business in California, every restaurant owner. They are the enemy. They are the enemy. And here's the other thing he said. He said he's going to help you with your high electric bills. Our are done with in California. We'll get you out of this. Okay. It's the same answer.
County and parental when she's elected. How will you help us reinstate Sonia Shah's authority when she becomes state?
Do that because she's a real champion for parents and common sense and education, and that is exactly what we need. Together, she's fantastic. But it's also what we can do in the rest has been, honestly, in the last 3 decades, one of our biggest, strongest education. She's been fighting, she fought that good fight within the Democratic Party. Against the team.
Entire budget, the bloated budget in California goes to education at the basic level of proficiency, not doing math. For low-income students, thankfully, the faculty at the university admitting students who have just been passed through the system.
You want to see what
And
that
we're now entering students in college at the University of and they can't do college level math or reading to remediation. The governor working with the governor, working with the superintendent
God's in place. There is the car.
Well, thank you. I want to give you a little bit of history because I have no qualifications to be a beekeeper, okay? I have very few qualifications to be anything, but I did grow up in Maryland, and I went to the University of Maryland and was a graphic designer. And then my husband and my 2 sons and I moved out here 30 years ago, which I can't believe. And we settled in Solana Beach. And the climate there was so different than Washington, D.C., where I was from, that I immediately, well, as immediate as possible, signed up to become a docent at the San Diego Botanic Garden, then Quail Gardens. So if I say Quail, you'll know what I'm talking about. At Quail, I met Bill Teague. And I instantly knew that he was important. And he became one of the most important people in my life. And any of you who know Bill, I know he was that important to you as well. So I wanted to give that little bit of history. But that's how I got to know the Del Mar Garden Club. And that's how I got to know Betsy Schultz. And that's how I got to my black lab, which I told these gals over here. If you want that story, they'll tell you. But Bill also convinced me. We worked together for 12 years on the displays at the Del Mar Fair. And everything I know about gardening, I learned from Bill Teague. And he became my mentor and dear, dear friend. And he convinced me to become a landscape designer. He said, Katie, just paint with plants. And those were the most profound words. ever. And so I know if he were still alive, he would be thrilled that I'm a beekeeper now, because it just is a natural progression to loving plants, that you love bees. And so I have a huge heart for bees, and I hope by the end of this talk, you will also have a heart for bees. I want to thank you for your presence here today. Woody Allen says that 90% of life is showing up. And so you showed up today, and that was very important to me. Thank you. And I just want to say that the more time I spend with bees, the more miraculous I find them to be. Bees not only pollinate, they not only give us honey. Think about it. They also give us light. Their wax becomes candles. I mean, you really can't think of one little tiny insect that is more important on this whole planet. And we'll talk about their importance in a little bit, but I wanted to just put some of this out there for you to be thinking about. So my heart for bees started with this green utility box. And if you look to the right, you'll see the bees on the side of the box. And this was at the bottom of my property, and I started to worry about what was going to happen to these bees, because when AT&T or whoever was going to have to get in there, somebody's probably going to come along and kill these bees. And so it turned out that the master gardeners were having their spring seminar, which hopefully you guys follow that. They have wonderful speakers. And I went to the speaker about bees to find out what I could. And I met Diane Bush. And Diane, see if I can do that. There's Diane. So that was this is June 2013, and Diane came and spoke to the Solana Beach Garden Club. We had just started back up, and Diane said that she's always looking for places to put bees, because when you're a beekeeper and it gets to be springtime, bees are everywhere, and you need to find homes for them. And I will talk to you more about that. And if I don't, somebody raise their hand at the end and say, what do we do if we have bees? But Diane said, I said, I have 3/4 of an acre in Solana Beach. I got plenty of room for bees. So she brought me my first bee box, and she tended it for 6 years. And then it was my husband, and I got honey. She split the honey with me 50-50, which was a sweet deal, because I didn't have to do anything. I did borrow a suit, and I would watch from afar, as she did her bee magic, but I really had very little to do with it. And then one year for my husband's birthday, I called Diane and I said, what do you give the man, who has everything, right? I said, Diane, I want to harvest honey for my husband's birthday. And she said, I broke my foot. I can't do it. You do it. Watch YouTube, she said. Watch YouTube. So I did. I watched YouTube, and so this is my husband taking a picture of me from far, far away, pulling out this honey, right? And so I want to show you the box. So the box looks like this, and the bees come and go down here at the bottom. And Diane had this all set up with the lid. I'll put the lid on in a little bit. I'm going to stack it. But I reached in and I pulled out the honey, and you have to brush the bees very gently off the frame. And look what I got. I got 3 frames of honey. So I'm going to pass some of this stuff around today so that you can feel. Each of these weighs about 4 pounds. It's really remarkable how much honey bees put in these wood boxes. And the boxes are engineered. I think somebody in Sweden, or I forget the guy, it starts with an L. He engineered this, and he engineered it this way because, oh well, I'll talk about the engineering in a minute. So this is me harvesting the honey from my husband's birthday. And I just took a knife and I scraped it off into a strainer, right? And there it is. There's the honey that my honey got. So then I found out that bees have to eat 6 pounds of honey to produce 1 pound of wax. So there I was, right, scraping all that wax off, getting it back down to the foundation, and then I realized, oh no, that's wasting a lot of the bees' energy, right? So part of this is to show you all the gadgets, right? All my gear. So this is the bee. This is a very special picture, apparently. This is the bee.
Say, well, if they have a 2/3 legislature, they can overturn a governor's veto. That's true.
One of those little flakes.
But do you know the last time
they
they overturned a governor's
work
veto?
up to their mouth, and they chew it up,
1979.
and
They
spit
don't
it
like
out
doing
into
it
the shape
because
of a
suddenly
honeycomb.
they then have to justify
It takes about
stuff
4
that they
minutes
sneak
per
in
flake.
without anyone paying attention
So
to
think
it.
about this.
Well, now
Think
if
about
I
all the
veto
effort
it,
that
and I'll
this
always have a
is
bigger
entailing.
microphone and a bigger
So
voice
then
than
I
they
got
do.
this.
And they have to justify the
This is a
sound at the
spinner,
time.
a high
It can't
hydraulic
be
spinner.
justified, and so it goes away.
What it does is,
that veto would be
I use a
incredibly
hot
important.
knife. I didn't bring my hot knife, but imagine this with a cord coming out the end of it. And it's heated, and all I have to do is just slice very gently down the front, and it takes the cap off, which seals the wax, the honey into the wax, and then I spin it really, really fast, and the honey shoots out onto the sides of this stainless steel drum. And so there I am I've scraped off the cap, and I'm putting it in, and it spins, and when it comes out, it's empty. It's empty, except see those little spots? That's not honey, that's pollen. So honey doesn't come from pollen. Pollen is the protein that the bees are feeding their babies, okay? The honey is the nectar. Honey comes from nectar.
I'm so
the honey
sorry
spins out, the
that you
pollen
feel
stays
like
in.
that. That
And then what I do is I
should
take
not
that
be
frame and I
happening.
put it right
Anya, what are you
back in the
talking
box.
about? That
And
moms
they
are
can
frightened to
start
go out
filling it
with their
immediately.
families.
Because
It's
it's called,
completely
they've already done the
unacceptable,
build out.
and I
So
will not
I'm going to pass
accept
this
it.
around.
And on human
I have a
trafficking,
couple
I just want to
show
say,
and tell items for
you are
you.
completely right. And this
This
is
is
so
what you
off
get
the
from
charts
Amazon.
unacceptable. Do you know that
It's plastic.
Today,
This
California-
this middle thing is plastic, and it's got a little bit of wax sprayed on it. This is what you get from Nor Candle Factory, and it is solid beeswax, and you can see the wire running through it that supports the frame. And what the bees will do is they will do their magic on both sides of this, because honeycomb is double-sided. And I could go into all kinds of details about the architecture. It's truly amazing. But I'm going to pass both of these around just so you can see the difference. Guess which one the bees prefer. Okay, that's rhetorical. All right, we'll start over here. Maybe somebody can help me. You want to help me, Mary, jump up when I have something? I'll just pass it to you and you can pass it around. Okay, so next I want to pass to you. This is a built-out frame where it's that Nora wax in the center, and then the bees have extruded and built the honeycomb, and then this has been scraped off, and this has been cleaned by the bees. There is no wax left in here because the bees they're very, very tidy. Do you know that about bees? If I ever look at the front door of the hive and notice any kind of debris or mold growing, like if it's been raining, then I know there's a problem, because they keep this house so tidy. So visual, in terms of learning about the bees, just looking at them and visiting them every day, I can know whether they're happy or whether there's a problem. So I'm going to pass this, and then last, I'm going to pass a frame of honey that I took out of the box so that you can see what it looks like and feel how heavy this is. And no,
children.
no licking. Okay, no.
Every single
Heavy.
one of those children was
So
in the
compare the weight. No, do it in order, Mary. Mary, do it in order, because I want them to feel the weight of that, and then I want them to feel the weight of this. It will, otherwise it won't make sense to you.
completely overloaded.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
overwhelmed.
So, all right,
Three
so
of them were here
I'm
in
gonna keep
California, right here in
going
San
here.
Diego was one of them.
So here is
Also
the,
in Long Beach and in Pomona. And these camps where these children were kept were a complete disaster. There was
oh, here.
sexual abuse going on in the camps.
All right, look here. See it dripping? This is how slow the honey filters through. Did you see that? I'll do it again. There. So I triple filter it. There's a
He made it
wide mesh in the top that catches a lot of wax and other things. Sometimes there's dead bees. Then there's a really fine mesh metal that catches more sediment. And then this microfiber is my third filter. And then you end up with pure raw honey, which is supposed to be very, very good for you. And it's liquid gold. I'm just saying. All that I've already told you, do you understand how difficult this is? And so people say, oh, it'd be cool if you would sell your honey. I'm like, you can't put a price tag on my honey. My honey goes where I send it. So a little bit more about the equipment. The boxes are, what's my next slide? Oh, so here is my label, and you will recognize that this is a Betsy Schultz sculpture. It's in reality, it's about this big, and she did this for somebody's bathroom. And I said, oh, that would make a perfect label. And so she did this label for me. It says, Bud's Honey, over 800 bees made this for you. And my husband and I's nickname for each other is Bud. And so, anyway, that's the joke, but it's also flower, Bud. Okay, so besides the honey, sometimes I have to take some of the wax, because if the hive died, I mean, it's not all rosy. I'm just telling you, there's a dark side to beekeeping too, and sometimes I lose a hive and I don't know why, and I'm a little bit nervous about reusing that wax again for another hive if I don't know precisely what could have happened or what might have contaminated it. So then I clean out all the insides and start with fresh wax. And so here in the old days, I used to boil that wax with water, and it took it had to cook for like an hour, and then I had to strain it twice, and it was this big production. Then I discovered that there's a solar wax melter, and that's to the right, that's my solar wax melter. Let me see if I have a little bit of video on that. Yeah, so if you just kind of watch the screen, I'll open it up and you can see that I just put that same honeycomb in there, but then the sun melts it, and it's got a filter, a strainer, and out comes practically pure wax. So I'll pass this around too, because this is kind of fun. But this is a lot of reclaimed wax. There's very, you felt how light those frames are, right? There's very little wax involved. It's super architectural. So anyway, that's my my cool new thing. So all of this equipment is to say that to be a beekeeper, you can't just pick it up on a weekend, you know, and you're investing. Now raise your hand if you grow tomatoes at home. Are they the most expensive tomatoes? Like seriously, the compost and the, you know, we don't do this because it's cheap entertainment, right? So, and then the more into it you get them, and you realize like, oh, there's another level, I could be doing more. So anyway, so this is expensive, but I want to show you the most valuable piece of equipment that I have is my best friend, Betsy Schultz. And this is us during COVID. And so this, see in the background there where the cones are, that is an irrigation box that is right outside my back door. And when COVID was happening and they closed the golf course, my husband said to me, I think there's a beehive in this box. Go put your suit on. So I did. I put my suit on, and look what was inside. So and it's like pancakes, right? That are just attached to the inside of this box. And it's just exactly like this commercial box that you can buy. How they measured the space that the bees need between to do their best work. And so they mimicked that, what happens in nature with this commercial box, so that the bees are super happy and they want to make a home and live in this thing. So so Betsy came over and we harvested that hive, and here we see we have the box set up right there on the ground, and we took the lid and we put it upside down on a little table that I had, and we used this knife. I think I have a video on this. Let me see. Yeah, you can watch. This is gonna, you see the bees flying around, and this is me and my knife getting ready to slice off as close to the top of the plastic as I can. And then what we did, and we learned all this on YouTube, right, is we put it into one of the frames, only it was empty. We didn't use the Nor wax, right, because the bees already have their own double-sided wax. And we used way too many rubber bands back then. Now I try and do it with one on each end, because this is hysterical. I told you how clean the bees are. They will, as soon as they attach that wax to the frame and it's safe, they will chew through the rubber band and drag it out the front door. And I will come in a week or so, and there will be a pile of rubber bands. They won't leave them here. They're on the ground. They are hysterical. And bees can carry their own weight in pollen and nectar. Every trip that they go out, they come back full, the same of their own weight in goodies. So they're very strong. They're very strong. So anyway, isn't that cool? So Betsy and I, this is a cool picture. To the left is what the capped honey looks like. To the right is what the capped brood looks like, or the babies. Okay, see how different it is? One is almost like a paper sort of cap, and in that paper, the bee chews its way out and gets all kinds of nutrition from that on its way out. But to the left is the cap of the honey, and when bees make honey, they have like a bee stomach, a honey stomach, and they spit the honey back into the cells, and then they fan it with their wings, which beat like 190 strokes per second. And they get it down to exactly 15% humidity. And when it's properly fanned, they cap it. And so it's preserved there. So I want to read this to you. I want to get this right. But in 2000, and 15, while excavating the Egyptian pyramids, archaeologists found pots of honey that were 3,000 years old, and they were still perfectly edible. Because honey is low in water, because they fanned it to exactly 15%, and high in sugar, it's protected from the air and bacteria can't grow on it. Isn't that fascinating? So if you have old honey in your pantry and it's gotten crystallized, that's a good thing. It's telling you that it was real honey, because honey will crystallize. If it's been in your cabinet and it's still syrupy, it's sugar water. It came from China. No, I'm joking. It came from I don't know where, but it's not honey. Honey will crystallize, and you can apparently put it in the microwave or something, or just warm it back up if you want it to be liquid. But otherwise, just take my honey crystallizes really fast because it's raw. I think some honey is pasteurized, and so maybe that slows down the crystallization, but yeah, it lasts forever. Another cool thing that I want to tell you about is if something happened to the hive, let's say they were filling up those cells with the honey, and something happened and they didn't cap it, and so you've got honey that's like maybe 25% water. It will ferment. Just like to make beer, you ferment grains, and wine, you ferment grapes. If the honey has too much water in it, it'll ferment, and it becomes mead. And so I read that mead is responsible for the term honeymoon. They served mead at weddings, and the excess was given to the newlyweds in the hopes that in 9 months or so, there would be a birth. Isn't that cute? That's where honeymoon comes from. So I told you they were miracles, right? Okay, so let's see, what's next? The most important thing when Betsy and I go harvest a hive is finding the queen. We might not necessarily see her, but we'll know we have her when all the other bees go in. So if you look in the center, that's the queen. And see how she has a shiny back, not hairy like the other ones are fuzzy? And then see her wings only go about halfway down her abdomen. Her abdomen goes all the way down and almost touches that bee at the bottom. That's another way you can find the queen, because her abdomen is so much longer, because she has to be able to get it down into those cells to lay the eggs. So we don't necessarily, sometimes we'll know right away that all the bees are just getting right into the box, but other times, because she can't fly anymore, other times we have to make a little bridge. We'll take a stick or a vine or something if it's down in an irrigation box, and we have to give her a route out into the box. And if we've taken all the little pancakes off and put them in the box, she'll move. She'll go to the box. So it usually takes a day or two before everybody's organized and in the box. But we've had a lot of success. So this is a swarm that landed up in the rafters on a column in my front yard. And if you ever have one of these in your yard, you don't have to worry about that, because they're probably just taking a rest, and they're probably trying to find a good spot, and they're probably on their way to my house. I had 6 of these last year. I did, and what happened, I don't know why, but I lost a lot of hives last year. But very quickly in the spring, I had replace them because the bees just came to, and I said to my friends, I'm like, do bees come to your house? So I think there must be a scent or something. If you have an irrigation box, is Kat here? Kat Fravel, there she is. So Kat Fravel just lives over here in Del Mar, and she's called me twice. Katie, they're back. She has this amazing hive in her garden that the bees, well, she has an amazing garden, and then the bees just keep coming, and so I have to harvest them, and I've gotten 2 great viable hives with queens. I'll show you a picture in a little bit. But what I wanted to tell you is if you see something like this and it's by your front door and it makes you nervous, one idea is to get a fan, an electric fan, and plug it in and point it at that, because they don't like the wind. So that's the safest, easiest way to say, no, don't set up shop here. If you have an irrigation box that they keep coming to, this is my new trick. Get some bird netting, because what they need is space, right? So just stick this in the irrigation box. It's very easy for your gardener to pull out if he needs to get in there to the valves, and then just put back in, and this will fill that gap, and this is very inexpensive. So this is my new trick. If it's somewhere that you can't do that, like I've got a couple interesting, well, another place that I get a lot of bees rescued from is compost bins. Have you ever had bees set up in your compost? So the second hive that Betsy and I rescued was in this compost bin, and they're stuck to the lid, and you can see that when the wax is vertical, it's stable, right? It has that 6-sided shape. But if, like on a hot day, maybe a piece fell off and broke and landed like it did on that pot, see how it's all melted? As soon as it goes sideways, no more structural integrity, it just melts. So I learn a lot. And see the color, see how white that bit next to you is? The fresher it is, the whiter it is. And then you can see as it goes back, it gets a darker yellow. That's just how it ages. So I have probably have some pretty dark stuff in here. This, we have our things back, so I'll rearrange. This is an interesting little group of things. It's sad. There's some dead bees in here. I'll talk about predators later, but when the bees just give up, sometimes they have to leave some baby bees in the honeycomb, and they leave them behind. And then anyway, you'll see they're like little mummies. But this was a frame, 3 little frames that were in a box on my property that I was storing, and all of a sudden some bees came and started to make a house. So you can see they start in one dimension and work out from there. And it's because they have to keep the babies at 95 degrees. And they actually can make heat with their wings to perfectly regulate the temperature. But they start small in an isolated area, and then they go, the more bees they have, the bigger they can grow. So this is just interesting to look at, and a little bit, if you have a strong stomach, because there are dead bodies in here. So that can be passed around. Mary, you want to send that around? So this hive, we were going to rescue it and leave it on the property because they lived down by the freeway, and they had a lot of land, but they also had a lot of weeds. And so one of the pests that are really annoying are ants, and you want to try and keep the ants away from the hive. And so sometimes if there's an area that's just hard to access, or if the people say, I'm not going down there, I like to put a piece of plywood down, and then I put buckets with water to keep the ants from getting up and in, and then the bees are much more protected. So we're at this house, the one with the composter, and I asked the husband, do you have a sheet of plywood? Oh, yes, he says, and he gets it. And as he's dragging it, and so Betsy's all zipped up, and I'm about like this. And as he's dragging the plywood, he swings it around to get it onto the floor, and he hits the compost bin with the plywood. And the bees go, poof, and they're everywhere, and I don't have my hood on yet. And so I'm like trying to get my hood on, but now the bees are in my hood and in my hair and chasing us. And we had our smokers, you can see the smoker there. We had our smokers going, which calms them. It doesn't stop an attack. I also like to carry sugar water, which I just spray to kind of, because that annoys them. But we had to full on get the garden hoses out and just kind of spray ourselves to get, well, I probably got stung like 15 times on my head. So this is me. I have ice packs in my ski cap and in a bandana on my face anyway, I took Benadryl and just laid in bed for like 2 days. Well, supposedly bee stings are good for something, but I can't say I had any benefits from this at all. But it didn't stop me. That's the good news. It didn't stop me. So here are, this is Cat Fravel's irrigation box. And you can see this was full. The whole thing was full, and I'm taking the pieces and putting them into these frames, and that's how big that, so the bottom box is bigger than the top box. The stuff I've been passing around is what's called the Honey Super. Those frames, see the difference? Yeah. So the hive gets a lot of space for the babies and for the honey, and most of the time the honey is right at the top. And I think it's because the honey has so much weight. And if the honey was at the bottom, it could cause the frame to break, right? Because the weight is at the bottom, but instead they keep the honey at the top, and then the babies are safe at the bottom. So I'll show you this video. This is Cat's bee. Look at all the bee activity that's going on. So I have put all the bees and all the wax and honeycomb that I can into that box. And then there's still a lot of bees, see, down inside. And maybe the queen's still in there, I don't know, but I've got a little escape route for her to get up into that box. And then the lid, where I told you that the honey's at the top, I take the lid and I prop it up. There's the lid. I prop it up against the door so that they can harvest all that honey and put it right back inside. Nothing goes to waste. By the next day, there is not a drop of honey left in that lid. And I can then clean it and put it back. And in the past, I have used mothballs. And there's a group, if you're taking notes, write this down. There's a group called the San Diego Bee Sanctuary. And they are wonderful, wonderful rescuers of bees. And they'll go up high in the rafters, which I won't do. I'm more of a ground level. You can see my knees are quite dirty. I like to work on the ground, but they'll go up high. And so if you need a high rescue, just call me and I'll tell you where to go. But San Diego Bee Sanctuary, great, great people. I don't know if you saw that article that was in the paper last year, but they lost 65 hives all at once. And they don't know if it was malicious or if somebody had sprayed, but what they got with the agricultural department, they had the bees tested, and I forget the name of the chemical, but it was not a chemical that was licensed for agricultural use. It had something to do with the construction industry, and it was used to prevent termites. But it got into, they tested the water, they tested the foliage around, but they didn't test the actual hives to see if somebody had sprayed the hives. But they suspect, that it was malicious. But anyway, they moved, and they're now keeping their bees in Valley Center. And if you want bees, they also need more properties, and they want to diversify. And so you could always reach out to them or me if you want to keep bees. I'm in the process of helping Linda Addison get some bees on her property. The last hive that I put there last spring, I did not get the queen. And I can picture it in my head. I know where she was, and I thought that the bees were just cleaning the lid for the honey, but darn it, I know the queen was there, because now that I've learned what I've learned, if I had just taken one more handful and put it in the box, I think we would have gotten her. So anyway, Linda's getting a new hive. They're a little bit rowdy, but the San Diego Bee Sanctuary guys, they will requeen if there's a rowdy group and try and calm the hive down. And I don't know how to do that. I'm only telling you things I know. So let's see, what comes next? Oh, so the bees will make their hive to the shape of the cavity, right? So you saw in the irrigation box, it looked very similar to the inside of a bee box. Well, this is inside a fence. It's a double-sided fence, and so there's just 3 long sheets of a honeycomb in that cavity space. And so there must have been a knot hole in the board, and the bees said, "Ooh, we found a hole," and this was in Del Mar, right behind Betsy's house. And I call those the fence bees. I name the bees. I have cat 1 and cat 2, and this lid says Spectrum, because that's that green tower. The bees tend to return to a place that, well, if somebody else liked it, it must be good enough for me. And so they'll reuse the same place. So that's why I'm telling you about this fiber. If you have a fence or you have a deck, this next one is a deck. So these are the floor of a gazebo. This is the floor of a gazebo. And I took the first board off, and this is what I saw. And then I tried to take the next board off, but 3 boards were all connected. The length of that is about, this was the biggest hive I've ever dealt with. It filled 2 boxes with that honeycomb. I did that all by myself. Betsy was not available that day, but it was so heavy she was available to help me move it to my yard. So this is at the end. I'm putting all of those leftover bits and pieces into one of these. Isn't that interesting? It was enormous, and this hive is still alive. That was just last spring. So it takes them about a year before they're big and strong, and I can start to add a honey super. So once I check on them, I'm going to talk a little bit about the makeup of the hive. So this is a cover. It just makes it easier for me to take the lid off and not have the bees all go woo all at once. So in my yard, it would be like this. This is heavy, and animals can't really lift it. It's some people even put like a brick or something on here, but this is pretty heavy. So when I check on them, I'll take this off, and I'll just sometimes just peek in, and if there's bees just busting out the top, I'm like, oh, it's time. And I take this off, and I put what's called a queen excluder. So it's this piece of metal, and I put it on top here, and the queen is too big to fit through there, but the worker bees can fit through those slats just fine. And so what that does is it separates the brood or the babies from the honey, and that way when I'm spinning it, I'm not killing babies or getting baby juice in my honey, right? So this is a very important piece of equipment. So the first thing I do is I put that on, and then I put this on. And then I refill with the smaller frames, those ones from Knorr, or if I have harvested, I'll take that, and that's the best thing that I can do, is if I have some juicy frames that have just had the honey spun out, I can put that in here, and whoop, they go right up in there, and they know what they're supposed to do, and they start producing honey. So that happens in the springtime. So I have a lot of cleanup to do right now to get ready for, because I'm going to be putting these supers on all my hives. I have 6 right now. Except when I give one away to Linda. So then this goes back on, and then the lid goes back on, and you just check on them and see how they're doing. But it takes a while for them to grow and be able to produce enough honey for us and them. So what's next? Oh, I was telling you that they make their hive into the shape of whatever they have. So this is, my friend went to Istanbul last spring, and these are hollowed out logs, and this is their honey making, their boxes in Istanbul. And you can see that the hives have just completely filled with enough space for them to get around the bottom and work between the groups. But isn't that luscious? And I guess they just cut off a piece of honeycomb and you take the whole thing with. But I thought that was very cool. Okay, so part 2, how bees help us. So bees fly 55,000 miles and visit 2 million flowers to collect 10 pounds of nectar to make 1 pound of honey. So the circumference of the globe is less than 55,000 miles. So this is just to let you know how hard these bees work. And you know they're all women, right? The workers are all girls. There are drones who obviously have a purpose, but they're not workers. And once they have served their purpose, they kick them out. They have very short lives. We're going to talk about that. The life cycle of the honeybee, there's the egg, there's the larva, I call it, or pupa. I'm sorry, the larva is like the little maggot looking thing. You'll see in a picture in a second. Then when they put that little paper cap on it, that's where they're metamorphosing. And did you know that every single winged insect goes through metamorphosis? Not just butterflies. So bees actually go through metamorphosis, and that's when they're pupa stage, and then they chew their way out, and they are, it says adult, but they're not really adults yet, and I'll explain that. This is very interesting to me, how the math just keeps doubling. 3 days as an egg, 6 days as a larva, 12 days to metamorphosis. And then it's a total of 21 days that the other bees are tending to the colony, okay? Those women, they're working hard. They're not just out collecting, they're coming back and feeding and cleaning. So this is what the egg looks like. Down inside that honeycomb, and the queen can lay 1,000 eggs a day. Can you imagine? So some colonies can have up to 20,000 bees in them. Mine, I think, are around 5,000. I think one of these boxes is about 5,000 or 6,000 bees. And but in some commercial things, you know, they'll stack them up high because they have a lot more interest in people to do all the work. This is the larva stage. If you look right in the center, you'll see like a little crescent shaped thing. And this is one of my pictures. I thought it was interesting how the queen, where that wire runs through the foundation, the queen didn't want to put bees in there. I guess she felt like that wouldn't be very comfy for the eggs, so she skipped that altogether and went around it. This is an interesting picture.
Thank you. I want to say one, everybody. Signs, roar. There's Lee's, grab one, and then you'll have whatever you need. And if you need a selfie, you're going to be quick. Steve's going out the exit on this side. And then I'll say one more thing. I know there's a lot of questions. A lot of questions that didn't get answered. I want to give you my personal email. Ask your question to me. I will make sure we go to the proper department. Here we go. I'm scared to do this, but it is what it is. It's Todd, T-O-D-D, at SteveHiltonForGovernor.com. I will get an answer. I appreciate you. Thank y'all for coming out.
That pollen that they've stuffed into frames, and they're feeding the larva. Somebody spent a lot of time watching these. So think about it this way: they're turning into teenagers, and they're getting skin, waxy skin, and so they're producing this wax. So then they start to carry the food from one place to another, and they start to have under-taker duties. So if the queen is laying 1,000 eggs a day, that means quite a few bees are also dying every day. And so a lot of times they'll die on your front porch, like they do at my house, or a lot of times they'll die in the hive, and then somebody's got to drag them out. So then, days 18 through 21, now they're adults, and they're on guard duty, and they are protecting the entrance from predators, and we'll talk a little bit about predators in a minute. And then at the end of their lives, they're out collecting pollen, nectar, and water. And I hadn't really thought about the fact that they need water, not just nectar. So that's what the bees are doing. So this is an interesting picture. If you look at the bee at the top, see how fuzzy her back is? See how she's kind of got that yellow tinge to her, and how big she is compared to the ones at the bottom, and they have sort of shiny black backs. So the ones at the bottom have just emerged. Those are their 1, 2, 3, 12, something like that. And it's interesting, even though they can fly, they're not fuzzy yet. So that means that the pollen isn't going to stick to them yet. They have to be hairy before the pollen is going to stick, so they don't go out into the world to pollinate, because they literally can't pollinate, because nothing's going to stick to them. So that's why they're at home doing all the home chores. And then when they get mature and fuzzy, they go off and start flying and pollinating. So here is a bee collecting pollen, and you can see the sacs on her knees, how full of pollen they are, and then her body, her fuzzy body, has little bits of pollen all over it. And in this picture, you can see, this is the inside of a hibiscus, I think, or maybe a, anyway. See the little bits of pollen in the red part of the flower? So she's getting in there, and she's looking for the nectar, but Remember I said 90% of life is showing up? 90% of what bees do is just show up. They're looking for nectar, but they're pollinating the plant because they showed up. So it's just fascinating. So how do we help the bees? One of the best things we can do to help them is to know what they are. And I think most of you being gardeners are very familiar with the difference between a honeybee, a bumblebee, and a wasp. But I have to say, I think the wasps are getting smarter because I had a wasp visiting my picnic this fall. And it just kept coming and coming and coming. And somebody said, why is that bee so aggressive? And I said, it's not a bee, it's a wasp. But then I had to look really hard at it, and it was a wasp. And you know what I did? I put 2 pot holders on my hands and just went, because it was so annoying, it was ruining the party. So just to say that I have never, I have one story about a bee. Bees very rarely come to your picnic. I mean, unless you have honey on the table.
I'm not taking a picture, don't worry.
I would recommend you
I'm gonna go post some stuff on
honey on your outdoor table. But unless you have honey, they're probably going to ignore you. But one time, my husband and I were up in our garden where I have 2 hives, and they never bother us. They never bother us. And we spent the whole day cleaning the garden, getting ready for the spring crop, and this bee just starts coming around, and my husband's like, I'm getting out of here, and he finished his chores, and so I laughed, haha, they're bothering him. Well, then they started coming at me. And I'm thinking, this is unusual. What does this mean? Well, I'll tell you what it meant. 10 minutes later, a swarm landed on my fence. And so this was a guard bee saying, we've scoped this out, and you're not supposed to be here. And she was literally trying to tell me, you don't want to be here right now. So if a bee ever does that to you in your own garden, go inside. They're probably trying to tell you something. So the next day, we were having a garden party, and my husband says, let's take the furniture off, and we were having my nephews, and little 4 and 2, and he said, let's take the furniture off. I said, no, we're not going to be outside today. The bees are being a little rowdy. So my niece pulls up into the driveway with her car, and the 2-year-old has fallen asleep in the car, and so she's got the windows down. And so at 10 o'clock that morning, I got to back up. 10 o'clock that morning, I was out checking a sprinkler in the front yard. This bee starts bothering me, and I thought, I've never been bothered by a bee here before. So they pull in, and all of a sudden, the window's down, the kids, everybody's just getting out of the car. A swarm starts coming over the golf course at us. And I said, roll up the windows. So get the baby out of the car. So we're like, as fast as we can, getting the baby out of the car, getting into the house. By this point, they're in my oak tree in my front yard, buzzing, 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 and they land in my oak tree. And I'm like, yay! But they didn't stay very long. I brought a hive out, put it under the oak tree, but they moved on. But isn't that interesting? So I would say if a bee ever comes, and it didn't try to sting me, it just was like, just go in the house and assume that maybe you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're not aggressive. Bumblebees can sting multiple times. Wasps can sting multiple times. Honeybees can sting one time and then they die. And they don't want to do that. So they're really not aggressive, of course, unless they're Africanized. And then that's a whole other thing. So that's why places like the San Diego Bee Sanctuary is really wonderful, where they're trying to take care of those aggressive queens and re-queen them with more docile. Oops, that gave away my punchline. So I was talking about predators. And of course, you know the number one predator for bees is Winnie the Pooh, right? But really, I have this slide here because I wanted to get on the topic of poo. Does your car ever look like this? With these little yellow, that's bee poo. That means a bee has, bees have to go to the bathroom somewhere, and a bee has flown over your vehicle and left its little mark. And so I get so frustrated because I cannot put laundry out to dry anymore because my laundry just gets covered with little yellow spots before, and I have to wash everything all over again. So you can just, squirt a little Windex on it and wipe it up. But anyway, my neighbors get very frustrated because they get a lot of those on their vehicles. That's the whole downside. This I was, again, reminding you about the other predator that's really, really annoying in San Diego is ants. Ants are tiny little things, but multiplied by a billion, they will drive a full hive away. Because they just can't put up with them. If the hive is strong, they can keep the ants away. But if the hive is weak, the ants win. And so that's really frustrating. Somebody told me once that San Diego was built on an anthill. I believe them. I believe them. Another predator that I hate is called the either the hive beetle, which that's what these larvae are, or the wax moth, which looks very, very similar. Here's a little video of my chickens eating the larva of the of the hive beetle. They think it's delicious. I know, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I want to show you. So what the hive beetle does is they lay these eggs, and then the larva, it like makes everything turn to slime. It smells bad, the bees leave, and it's really hard to clean up after. The wax moths, I have a sample for you. Look what they do. This I left out over the winter, and they just help themselves. And you see the little cocoons here at the top? They make their cocoons everywhere, and they even chew some of the, do you want me to pass this one around? I don't think so. They even chew some of the wood to make like a little impression to get all cozy in there. So they're super, super annoying. But I deal with them. Let's see. I think that's all the show and tell bits I have here for you. Oh, the beetles are about the size of a ladybug. Black, flatter than a ladybug, but just about the size of a ladybug. And once in a while, when I'll take the lid off, one will scurry, and I try and smash it. They usually are kind of hanging out on the top because the bees, I think, they have a very hard shell, so I don't know if the bees can, keep them down. But what the bees, I'm sure, do is when they do lay their larvae, they kill the larvae. But again, as long as the hive is strong, it's not a problem. It's once the bees have left and I'm not paying attention, that's when things run amok. So, but that's what chickens are for. So. The hive moths, I think it's the same kind of thing. This was something that I had left out over the winter. So I don't run into too many hive moths in the box unless the bees have abandoned. So again, if I'm traveling and I'm gone for weeks and weeks at a time, that's when things can kind of get out of control. So what can you do? My number one request, if you're brave, is to plant African blue basil. Have you heard of it? It's a gorgeous plant. It's an edible plant. It has those flowers. You just cut it back, and the next year it's a perennial. It comes back. Supposedly it's sterile. You can't, because it makes seeds like any basil would, but supposedly the seeds are sterile. But you can get it at Armstrong or probably pretty much anywhere. But isn't that a beautiful plant? It looks a little bit like a lavender. It's a salvia.
Is it news?
In the salvia family. Another great salvia is Bee's Bliss. That one's beautiful too. Lavender, thyme, rosemary, chives, and honeysuckle. All plants that we can eat, all very, very attractive to the bees. The other thing that bees love are trees. I would say, and I was going to look up the percentage, but I forgot. A huge percentage of their diet comes from tree pollen and tree nectar. You don't think about it because they're up so high. But if you walk under a California pepper tree or a eucalyptus tree when it's in flower, you will hear, I mean, there is bottle brush, yep, interesting. So those are all things that the bees love. And they can also impart some of the flavor to the honey. In closing, if bees were to disappear off the face of the earth, man would only have 4 years left to live, says Albert Einstein. And he was pretty smart. So let's hope we don't have to find out if that's true. But there are, this is another one of my favorite Albert Einstein quotes. There are only 2 ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. And I truly do believe that bees are here for a miraculous purpose, and it includes feeding us and the rest of the planet. And I thank you for being here. And my last slide that I found on the internet, be kind to bees or you will be in trouble. So thank you. Thank you.
I don't care who he is, I'm voting. That's how we got down to 10. Yeah. Republican mayor in Democrat City.
So I'm happy to take a few questions if you do have any.
Thousands of customers. When on it, you put a little sticker, stop gas tax. Do it. Is that yard sign for a yard? How many people see it? 2, 3?
You know, that is a good question. I would say Google it to find out what vegans are thinking. I believe that honeybees are generous, and there is plenty of honey that is, if it's sustainably done, to go around. If you over harvest, the bees are going to leave. You know, they're not going to put up with it. So any commercial honey production facility probably knows how much they can harvest and how much they have to leave for the bees. So I don't think any bees are being injured in the process. And I forgot to say at the end that I think their lifespan is only 45 days. So they have that 21-day period of incubation in the hive, and then they only last another 6 weeks. So their life is very, very short. And I think, well, that's another one of my favorite quotes.
Nobody talks about that.
Let me see who it was.
My Twitter feed, I put all this on there.
I should have highlighted it so I could find it. Yeah, so did I tell you this? One bee will make a half a teaspoon of honey in its life. A half a teaspoon. So one of my favorite quotes is by a man named Edward Burke. He says, "Nobody made a greater mistake than she who did nothing because she could only do a little." So think about that. Even if you can only plant one African basil plant for the bees, and I don't suggest you do it by your front door, put it towards the back. Plus they get about this high. So when they're flowering, so it goes to the back of the border. But you know, every little bit matters, and bees are not frustrated by the little bit that they can contribute, because multiplied by 20,000, that's a lot of honey. Here.
You always get Hi, this is Steve Stolten. Please contribute to my
Thank you for asking that question. So I have when my kids were little, I had a trampoline, and I dug it down because I didn't like the way those big cages looked, and I dug it down and made it ground level. And then when they grew up and the thing rotted, I had a big hole, and so I turned it into a pond. And the bees have happy hour. They come at around 4:30, depending on the time. The bees come and they'll land on the water lilies, and they'll drink and I guess collect water to take back to the rest of the bees. And so yes, a water source in your yard is a great idea. It doesn't have to be that, could just be a bird bath, but the bees will come and they'll collect water. So yeah. That is a good question. Ask Google. Most of the time, they won't leave a hive until the queen is on her. She can live up to 5 years, I want to say. And most of the time, no, they'll fight. They'll fight to protect. They won't leave. But if somebody sprays pesticides, like last year, I walked up into my garden and I have a pathway that leads to the top, and the bees are at the top, and there were thousands of dead bees, all in a straight line going up where I had these two hives. One died first and then the second one died. So I presumed that the golf course, I live right up against a golf course, that they must have gotten in the path of something. And I don't know. I don't know why they died. But at that point, the queen has died too. So most of the time, and then they'll make a new queen when the old queen is running out of eggs, and then she goes off and has her maiden voyage, and that's where that came from. And you'll have to Google that too, because there's a lot more to the life cycle of a bee. In the back. Nicotinoids, yes. They kill bees. A lot of things kill bees. Did you know neem oil will kill bees? Thank you for that question. Don't spray anything except early in the morning, or I recommend, like if you want to spray your citrus because they've got that ugly curly leaf, wait until the bees go to bed. They usually go to bed when the sun goes down. So it's not dark yet, but the bees are not flying around, they're not in your orange blossoms or your citrus blossoms, and so wait until it's usually not as windy then either, and do your spraying then of neem oil and anything organic, because even organic compounds will kill a bee if they get them in their system. So isn't that interesting? Everything is dangerous. Everything is dangerous to bees. So I live with ugly leaves.
I've been discussing the sewage crisis, and remember, it's not just sewage, it's actually toxic chemicals as well. I've been with them many times. I've seen it
That's a good question. So the royal jelly, I used to have a clean cell tissue. So I showed you how the drone cells were ruining
the lives of so many people and communities right here. So yes, it starts with a state of emergency here in California.
I had one, and when I opened up, I had everything stored in these trays with lids on them, and when I opened them up,
and that's one of the advantages
the
of having
wax
these
moths had eaten everything.
with the federal government. I've already been talking
So the queen cell is about an inch long, hangs on the outside of the frame, and beekeepers go through their frames and look at queen cells in the springtime because they don't want their hive to swarm and leave. And the queen will, so they feed her that royal jelly, and they store it somewhere in the hive. And if you're smart and know what it looks like, it can be harvested, and it's apparently, good for aging, or I don't know. But yeah, I don't think nobody's being damaged by harvesting royal jelly. It's just not there to feed the queen, and a lot of times commercial hive people don't want the a queen to grow and then take half the hive with her when they swarm. Yeah. Okay, here. Okay. Yes. Yeah, it will. You could just ask him if he could come early in the morning or come later in the afternoon. Chances are if he's spraying your foundation of your house or, you know, your garage, your rafters and stuff, chances are the bees aren't there. I mean, I just no. Try not to spray on a windy day, and try if you can not to spray when the bees are out foraging. Yeah. The smoker. So NOR has all of these tools except they're closed. Did you guys hear that NOR Candle closed in October? I just couldn't believe it. But they still have an online shop, and I'm trying to still have access to some of their bee stuff. They're thinking about it. But anyway, you put this fluff that also is kind of impregnated with sawdust in the smoker, and I always have 2 lighters because one will refuse to work when you need it, and the smoke is really important. And I don't know if it tells them to beware. I think the scent of of something burning. Most of the time, if I just let it, they'll go down. And they just, and that's great, because then I can do what I need to do and then put the lid back on, and I don't crush anybody by putting the lid on. I always put the lid on at an angle and then twist it so that as few, but in some of my pictures you'll see like a flat bee on the edge. It's very sad. But the smoker calms them, but like I said, it doesn't, it's not a narcotic or anything. It doesn't stop them from, another one of my tricks is peppermint gum. I forgot about this, and when I was doing
I was going to interview on it.
bee harvesting
Go ahead.
week, they were right.
I'm going to take a picture. Are you guys next to
They will find the point of weakness. Last week I had jeans on. I always wear a thick sweater because if I go after my shoulders, I found that out one
That's there, and like, and I can't even remember. It wasn't even that low. Do you know what I mean? It was probably like 50 cents or 25, like nothing like now where you'd be like, you go and fill like buy as many gas cans as you could. But it's your house. It's so crazy. I'm glad we addressed trafficking. Yeah, I'm gonna ask him about it. You know, I feel like he's addressing Figueroa, but it's like the rules got
Like two.
allow for trafficking. It is. So it's like I just don't want to tell him to listen to it. But you said you don't. Hello. How are you? Good. How are you?
Just a big one.
Let's just.
A picture with you real quick before you
Yes, please do that. Yeah.
Chula Vista Live Data and San Diego Live Data.
It's local. It's local. County, like San Diego County.
Events with Steve before.
Kim Yater, like we.
I don't know Kim
Oh, okay,
Yater.
yeah. Well, him and he does, yeah. So.
All right. Let's see. It's just we have something that he was about to do,
So you don't want him.
and then we can know. It's not that. It's just when people ask, we like say yes. We kind of just want to commit to the order of what we said. We have something with someone right now. Let me see what he says, and then I mean I have no issue with it.
Yeah,
it's just
sure.
kind of like just timing and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yes. You gotta, anytime you want to take a picture, always do this. And if you do a selfie, always do this.
Hey, brother, quick question. Can you return in September for the Republican Hispanic Club?
I guess. I don't know. I'm not in charge of that. You need to speak to Todd.
Speak to his, like,
Bring in a quick picture, please.
yes,
I just wanted to make sure.
Our next governor, how exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we just do real quick?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm going to just put this here. I'm local here in San Diego. Kim Yater is a good friend of mine.
Yeah, great.
And
Okay.
so Robert, he covers both of us. We do San Diego Live Data, Chula Vista Live Data. I cover kind of all things San Diego.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming and speaking with the people. When you were talking about child trafficking, I understand that like Figueroa is a big issue here in National City, or just outside of here in National City. They have a similar issue.
Right.
And when you have Scott Wiener that are bringing in bills that are like as under the guise of protecting that entity, but what it allows is for children to be trafficked.
Well, it stops law enforcement from actually taking action. I've spent a lot of time on it, and it's a classic example. I mean, even if you agree with what he's doing, and a lot of people, of course, disagree, the unintended consequence has been that law enforcement are now there. It's like we've put handcuffs on law enforcement from actually, pursuing this and dealing with the traffickers. It's disgusting.
Yes, and I also find that, like, so with Erin, who you just took a picture with, I actually asked her to come. She's been dealing with family court issues. That is a major issue.
It's
but
major.
Also, you go into CPS and the foster care system, and with the ASFA bill that came forward when the Clintons were in administration, it allowed for a fast track and kind of like a conveyor belt of trafficking to happen within that system by creating cases that don't need to be there, because I'm personally involved in that. I know a lot of families, they've personally targeted me. Actually, CPS said, because I had a young girl who was 4 years old, well, 3 at the time, confessed to me some sexual abuse. They said that I was coaching her and leading her to those types of things, and were unwilling to go in and make sure that that wasn't happening. And so I find that a lot of times children are put with the abusive parent or an abuser, and they don't really protect them. So what would you be willing to do?
No. I mean, it's outrageous. This story,
reform CPS
almost
or
major reform. I mean, every single. I don't want to exaggerate. I want to be accurate. Nearly every one of these events in the last year and a half, there's been someone with a story like that.
Yes.
It's a huge issue that I really wasn't aware of the scale of it.
Sure.
And it's evil what's going on.
100%.
And seems to me that the system has been infected by this ideology that is anti-family and anti-parent, and it's crazy what's happening. And the stories are all different kinds.
That's right.
Sometimes it's, I mean, it can go different ways, but what's not happening is that the well-being of the child and the family put first.
Yes.
So you have a guy who's obviously a loving father who objected to his daughter, I think it was. I can't remember which way around, to be honest.
Right.
Where the other parent wanted to, change their gender and do all that.
Yes.
He objected to that. He's the one that's punished.
Yes, and that's what they do.
You've got a situation where a mother, this is from Orange County, a mother was being, or is it Riverside? A mother, I mean, there's
Either
so
way,
many,
it's everywhere, yeah.
She was the victim of domestic violence. Separated from the husband,
Yes.
divorce proceedings underway. That was all going on. He was prosecuted for that.
Yes.
And found guilty. And then the next thing that happens, you have CPS at her door, banging on her door to remove her children.
Yes.
Because she didn't protect
Protected them. Yes.
And
Yes.
what? And she has 4 children that were taken from her. As far as I'm aware, they're still
Yes.
separated. The youngest was 7 weeks old. She was breastfeeding that little baby, and they took. I mean, it's so incomprehensible to me that this is happening. So I'm very aware of it, and that the answer is, like I said, a complete clear out of this whole system. Family courts, and we're going to have to find really good people
Yes.
to put in charge of it. I mean, as governor, you can't do everything, you can't run
course
everything.
not, yeah.
So what I really am looking for are people who we can put in, who've got the right values, and who will put the welfare of children first and families rather than this sick ideology.
Well, and so then I
That's
know
really
this
a big deal.
A hard thing to even go into, but I would say even the Epstein files, where it allows like this abuse to kind of come to the surface and to be talked about, but then it kind of gets brushed back under the rug. And I find that because even children from CPS and foster care go into, that kind of an operation. And I feel like the
Well, it's
more
a huge part of the problem. I think the number is around 60% plus
Yes.
of the children who are on Figueroa Street. That's what I know best, because I've
Yes.
been there with organisations working there.
Yes.
Although they're all over the state actually, and but that particular like there at least, well over half. I think the number is around 60% of the children who are trafficked are coming from the foster system.
Yes.
That's where they're coming from,
Yes.
and often. And there's something going very badly wrong there, because it also happens that sometimes when they're rescued from the clutches of the traffickers and they go back to the foster, they run away again.
Yes.
Like, how
go
bad
back into
does it have to be if it's better to be trafficked for sex on Figueroa Street than with wherever you are?
Yes.
So there's something really bad going
Yes.
on. It's very, very serious.
Yes, and I would say that even the migrant children that were trafficked are continuing to be to we continue
100%.
to fund that through all
yes,
of the
and when we
programs.
know from HHS data, I mean, they just published this last week, 330,000 of the children are still missing.
Yes.
Now, some of them, that's the total nationwide. We don't know for sure. Some of them may have gone back to Guatemala or El Salvador, wherever. That's true. We don't know because they lost track, so they don't know. That's itself a problem.
Yeah.
But the assumption is that the majority of them are in California. That's
Yes.
what the assumption
Yes.
is from the system.
Sure.
So we've got potentially hundreds of thousands of children in California doing who knows what.
Yes.
And the other number that's really shocking is 100,000 of them are under the age of 13
Yes.
today.
Yes. But they've gone through where some of them have aged out, so that's
I mean,
also
it's just,
a thing.
yeah, well, the aged out ones you can't keep track of, but that number is an accurate number
Yes.
because when they arrive, they are processed and recorded.
Yes.
So we know that 479,000 number is accurate, and we also know that from the ages when they come in, that there's 330,000 missing, 100,000 of them under 13.
Yes.
Today.
Yes.
It's just so beyond belief to me
Yes.
that Becerra has gotten away with this for so long.
Yes.
And he presided over this, and it wasn't just incompetence. It's very important everyone understands that.
right.
It was deliberate.
Yes.
Because what he did was deliberately dismantle the checks so that he would get the kids out quickly, because he didn't want the optics of kids in camps.
Yes.
That's what he did.
Yes.
It's unconscionable. and we're not going to let them get away with it.
One more thing. So if that is the case and HHS is in charge of that, they're in charge of foster care and CPS, would it be suffice to say that they are one of the largest human traffickers in our nation that needs to be reformed so that we're not trafficking children, but we're protecting
Well, that's
them?
already happened in terms of where we are today. Bobby Kennedy's very, very serious about this. I've spoken to him about it, and they've done great work to find some of these children. So that's what they've been doing already in the first nearly 2 years now of the second Trump term. They've put a lot of resources. In fact, I've been working with some of the people who have been finding the children.
Yes.
And they have found, I think it's 180,000 they've tracked down. They've gone through diligently the records and they've put the work in to find them. But there's many more they haven't found.
Of course.
And so the real point is that it's Becerra who turned HHS
Yes.
into the largest child trafficking operation in history. There is no other way to describe it. And this is totally disqualifying for the governor's race.
So-
totally disqualifying.
But so do you feel like that would be a reform that needs to be happening absolutely right off the bat too
but
because of that?
Yeah, but I think
right?
it already, what I'm saying is I think it already is in the sense
Okay,
that the current leadership of the HHS is
different.
completely different.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
they take this very seriously.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your time. I'm sorry I kept you longer than
No,
they
no,
wanted
great
me
to see you.
to.
Thank you.
Is there any way I can stay in touch with you to talk
yeah,
about this continually
Yes.
and potentially in the future?
Yeah, what these guys here. these
I'll
three.
get in touch
Yeah.
with you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
so
Thank you
much.
for your time. Pleasure seeing you again.
Sorry.
I was getting wrapped. You want to do
I know.
outside?
Yeah, we
in,
can.
Or you want to just get
I just
real quick in front of his sign?
Yeah, I can. So thank you guys for joining us. I'm sorry, I understand that there just, as this live stream is going on, that there has been some technical difficulties and we have some kind of other audio that has been streaming in the process, but we're gonna go ahead and put this out in a clean version for everybody to see so that they can see this town hall in Chula Vista. We're here at Novo, sorry. It's a Brazilian, restaurant, and so it's been exciting. This entire place was packed today, and so it was interesting to see so many people just really excited to, bring about change, and so we'll see where this leads, but basically enough is enough. Let's fix California, and so thank you guys for joining us. Chula Vista Live Data, San Diego Live Data. I'm Eye of the Storm. We have JData 17, and we just want to continue to bring you guys all of the, whatever's happening in San Diego County. So God bless you guys. Stay classy, San Diego. It's never a dull moment, and we'll be back to you again soon with what's next. So take care.